AI has a huge potential to drive inclusivity. Tech industry as a whole needs to carry on prioritising inclusive design, provide training and resources for new diverse employees.
Alex Grimshaw, the Chief Technology Officer, CTO of Microsoft United Kingdom.
When any organisation takes its first baby steps into public cloud, and in this case Azure, you pick a very discrete, isolated, non-independent workload, and you obviously look if you can migrate and operate that in the cloud. With Microsoft, transparency is key. We expect customers will always have control of their own data. They'll always know where it's located and how it's being used, while we'll uphold our privacy commitment through robust privacy governance policies as well.
Hello and welcome to Dinis Guarda YouTube podcast show. I'm excited today to welcome one of the biggest organizations in the world, Microsoft, but I'm particularly excited to share with you a fantastic personal interview that shows how technology can touch a country, in this case, Microsoft UK, but as well how we can look at technology, humanity, and innovation and digital transformation. So this is a special episode where actually I'm going to be featuring Alex Grimshaw, the Chief Technology Officer, CTO of Microsoft United Kingdom, and a seasoned professional and innovative personality in the tech scene in the UK and worldwide. So Alex Grimshaw is a technology executive with over 30 years of experience in strategical business, digital transformation, cloud-based innovation across both public and private sectors. He is currently the CTO for Microsoft Azure in the United Kingdom, and where he plays a central role in helping organizations leverage the Microsoft platform Azure and the broader Microsoft technology portfolio, and enabling digital innovation, operational transformation, and long-term technological growth. Alex joined Microsoft in 2010 and has held several leadership positions within the organization, and has been serving as the CTO for the UK Microsoft Azure since 2020. Prior to this role, he was the CTO for Microsoft's Central Government Division in the UK, and during his tenure, he was responsible for the technology strategy, consulting growth, and digital transformation for some of the largest public sector bodies of the country, namely the Majesty Revenue and Customer Service, HMRC, which is the UK tax organization, and the Department for Work and Pensions, DWP. And Alex's responsibilities included leading the Microsoft UK public sector community, overseeing the strategical technology leader relationship with these departments, and managing multi-horizontal account planning. And of course, under his guidance, Microsoft transition into Microsoft Azure, HMRC transition into Microsoft Azure, and becoming two of the most digital advanced public administration bodies in the world. His achievements at Microsoft earned him a place in the prestigious Platinum Club in 2019, an internal recognition for outstanding performance and contribution. Before this, Alex has both an experience as an entrepreneurial and as well working with big players like Deloitte. And one of the things that I want to highlight from this is the humanity of Alex. They went through some very intense, tragic personal experience, but as well how he brings this humanity to business with a calmness and an enthusiastic approach, very practical, but very intense and very innovative. So it's a pleasure to have you here, Alex. I'm quite excited about all the work that you are doing, and as well the fantastic work that Microsoft has been doing in terms of being one of the biggest corporations in the world, how you keep the innovation, but as well how you keep your clients, your ecosystem, and all the different things. So that's one of the things I'm excited to speak today. So I would like to start what was the element in your career, as well in your education, that sparked your interest in technology, and what were your inspirations? And of course, the journey to becoming a CTO at Microsoft.
Sure. Well, first of all, yeah, great to be here, Dinis, and great to be talking to you as well. Well, so I literally fell into IT, and I mean literally. So at an early age of around 11 years old, I actually had quite a horrific head injury through an accident, and I actually delayed my first year of high school. And basically because my parents were concerned about my motor functions and any kind of obviously lasting effect on the brain at such an early age, they purchased what was the first available home PC off the high street, which was the Sinclair ZX81, which I know you've heard of before, and I've heard some of your other kind of interviewees talk about this before. And it had a huge base RAM of 1K, which clearly you couldn't write a lot of code in that, but you could obviously give it a huge RAM pack up to an amazing 64K of RAM as well. So I essentially spent the first 6 months at home, not going to school, living and breathing this computer, and I became completely obsessed. So I learned BASIC. I got to a point where I even had one of my games listed in one of the magazines where you obviously typed out, letter by letter, and of course you always got something wrong, so it didn't work at the end. But that was my life at the time. So at that point, I was absolutely hooked on computers, on technology in general. So I think that really did forge my path, very intentional path then in terms of my academic studies and career path onwards. Weirdly, even at 12 years old, I decided I want to become a systems analyst, which was quite a bizarre thing for a 12-year-old to say. I think even now, if you ask most adults, they wouldn't even know what that is. So, and I know it's become quite a common phrase over time, but I had a very squiggly career as well. So if you think about it, I had many years in software development, so from assembly language to Pascal to C#, C++, Modular 2, .NET, all of these great languages. And I've also crossed into like networking. I was a certified Novell engineer. I was a certified systems engineer for Microsoft. I did my MCSD solution developer certifications. So obviously we did networking, infrastructure, bit of enterprise architecture in there as well. Even had a foray into doing program and project management in Prince2 environments. I was Prince2 practitioner. And then, of course, I also had the pleasure of working in food manufacturing. So I had in industry as a management accountant. So I studied SEMA as well. And so a management accountant, and I also led on work study as well. So time and motion studies and all that kind of stuff that you find in manufacturing and production line environments. And then, of course, I had certainly the privilege of working in enterprise consulting at Deloitte, where I was involved in such diverse things as M&A, acquisition, engagements, and also I led the CRM and ERP practice from a software development perspective. And then I left Deloitte, run my own consultancy for 8 years, doing a myriad of different things. And then, of course, I landed as the CTO for DWP, so the Department for Work and Pensions in Microsoft.
Well, that's a very impressive profile. And as well, you have both technology background, entrepreneur background, and corporate background, which is actually quite impressive. And as well, combining all the technical with entrepreneur and as well with the corporate part. So in terms of your work, of course, you're leading one of the biggest division of Microsoft worldwide, or in this case, UK, but as well with impact worldwide. But in terms of the work that you're doing and your previous work, you actually have been working very close with big UK largest public sector organizations. Mm-hmm. One of the projects you work was the HMM revenue for people at worldwide listing is the taxes system of the UK government. And that is a big thing. And you work on putting this sector in terms of transforming the technology infrastructure and managing all of that. So I'd like to use this as a case study, how you combine that big project in terms of the way you lead technology.
Yeah, sure. I think what was interesting about working with HMRC and DWP, as you say, they are the two largest public administrative organisations in UK government today. So we're talking circa between them about 160,000 employees. So quite impactful projects. And as you'll probably recognise, in any long-standing, historical, established organisation, there's typically significant technical complexities that kind of within the IT operation that evolve over time. There's layers and layers and layers of evolution of different types of technology that create, obviously, what we refer to as technical debt. Now, then layer on top of that what I refer to as cultural debt, or another way of looking at that would be, we've always done it this way mentality, so cultural debt. And then you splash on environmental constraints like, obviously, budgetary pressures or do more with less mandates. Then, of course, any form of transformation, although necessary, requires all of these factors to be considered. Because, of course, you cannot just attack the technology platforms. You've got to consider the bigger picture. So my kind of key guidance, and certainly my learnings from working with these organizations, is, look, you've got to start with the people. You've got to start with the stakeholders that are directly impacted by the program, whether that's their employees, their customers, their partners. You've got to take everyone on that journey with you. Always come back to the question, and I will, no matter who I'm working with, whether it's organizations, internal stakeholders, I will always come back to the core question of, what's in it for me? Why should I care? And if you can obviously address that question as a continued mantra almost as you start off the program and right the way through its conclusion, you're going to be far more successful. So for me, it's about the transparency that you bring with the vision and ambitions, be inclusive of all communities, share the progress and celebrate the achievements along the way as well. So in my experience, the technology transformation is the easier bit. It's certainly the culture and processes that would require the extra attention if you all want to succeed for the good of everyone in the project.
And that's not a small task. If you see, for instance,
It's not, it's human nature.
Yes. And if you see the US government, for instance, failed in the first Medicare system. So and as well, the FBI had actually a case of an interview where we discussed precisely the challenge of transforming big corporations worldwide. So you mentioned that you mostly transformed the technology infrastructure, of course, of the tax system of the UK government, but as well 160,000 people that work on that. So I would like to touch that because I think people don't understand, unless, of course, you work in big corporation, the really work that is, because there's three layers. There's the layer of the people, the layer of digital transformation, and the layer of technical expertise, because, of course, a mistake on that can actually create a lot of layers, to be honest. So coming back to you, coming from your career, and I like to deconstruct as well, we build these things, is your career achievement is that you actually have the technical skills, the entrepreneurial, and the corporate. Within being, and as well, Microsoft in the UK is massive, it's 6,000 employees and huge infrastructure. So tell us a bit about that role of you coming to Microsoft, taking the role as CTO and leading as you.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because so first of all, I obviously joined as a CTO for a customer CTO. So that's facing directly off to customers and incumbent partners who operate in those customers, or the large GSIs that you would imagine, Capgemini, Fujitsu, PHP, all of those. So you have a rich tapestry of different stakeholders with obviously different drivers. So, of course, understanding everyone's currency is key to any form of success for anyone and any form of relationship. But what I would say is I did the CTO role, the customer CTO, for about 9 years. And as part of that role, I also got to a stage where I also formed and led all of the public sector CTOs in Microsoft in the UK, who are aligned to all the public sector industries that you would imagine, obviously, public safety, national security, health, education, local government, central government, education. So what I felt, well, the two things that I would say that kind of what attracted me to Microsoft and is maybe continue at Microsoft is the culture. We really do have, and it becomes almost a cliche for people maybe outside of the organization around this growth mindset. Certainly what the Satya introduced, because you will find no matter who you interact with in the Microsoft organization, everyone has this growth mindset. Everyone wants to, we're certainly not a know-it-all culture. We're a learn-it-all culture. And we want to, everyone's very, very collaborative. We all want to build upon other people's success and also make other people successful. And it's a very much almost a great creative kind of melting pot just of culture where everyone is in the same direction. So that was certainly something new for me because, of course, I'd come from my own consultancy for 8 years where I'd essentially made all the sales, created all the solutions, supported the solutions, then I was on to the next sale. So, to them come back into a corporate culture, clearly Deloitte's was a corporate culture, but very different. Corporate culture at Microsoft is just one where it is a family environment. And again, it sounds so cliche, but I assure you it's not. It really is what I'm saying it is. But it was just the constant kind of aggregated appreciation that everyone wants to do better for themselves and for everyone else around them. And certainly the customer value is always at the center of that.
And it's really a key element. That I think that's the reason why Microsoft keeps being, one of the leading the leading company in the world, together with Azure 3 and part of the 7. So one of the things that attracts me as well is, like you said, the sense of culture, but the sense of creating value, the creative part, because the velocity of change is so big. You're the CTO for the UK for Microsoft, but as well leading the Azure division, which is a massive division. It actually probably, I think, is the biggest revenue stream of Microsoft worldwide. And so I would like to touch, before I want to go a bit more on case studies, tell us a bit about the division of Microsoft Azure and how you are positioned now that we have cloud computing, AI, and you have the Copilot as well, how the Azure differentiates itself and actually some of the strengths that you feel that is happening as we speak.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because obviously we certainly see a lot of our engagements come from our existing enterprise kind of credibility, obviously born out of non-Azure based services, obviously the Office suites, the business applications, etc., and obviously the myriad of physical, whether it be Surface portfolio or other ancillary services that we provide. A lot of it comes out of that. But I think that what really kind of jumps for me is that you're right. I've seen the evolution. When I joined Microsoft originally as a CTO, I covered the entire stack. So every single product that we sold, I covered that in terms of our engagement with the customers. And then over the last 4 years or 5 years now, actually in this role, I've been very targeted on our Azure platform, which is circa 600 different services. So a huge footprint of different services, covering, as you say, a myriad of different solution areas, be it infra, be it data and AI, or be it actually application development and digital innovation. So we have three distinct, what we call solution areas that cover all of those capabilities. And what I think about is I think that where maybe other providers might be quite niche in terms of where their business value or strengths or market position, we cover the entire gambit of what a customer will require to digitally transform their organization.
So for people listening to us, and of course I have an audience that knows, I think everyone knows about Microsoft, but I'm particularly interested. So Microsoft Azure offer a wide range of services that look at computing, analytics, storage, networking, and AI, enabling business to manage and deploy applications. And in terms of the work you do, and I think we're going to be, I want to come back again to the case study of the government UK tax system. So how do you see the uniqueness? Because for instance, there's computing, there's storage, there's network. So you see that the present situation of Microsoft Azure as the way that you can have everything together, integrated, which I think is one of the strengths. But I would like to see how you see that part and how you see, especially now that companies are a bit fragmented, how that can be a strength for them, bear in mind all the capacities of Microsoft.
Yeah, I'll give you kind of two views on that. One is, I think obviously, as we know, the onus is on every organization to embrace the digital age, or they're going to be left behind. Or crucially, they've got to accept the benefits of AI transformation. Now, the Microsoft Azure platform, of course, provides the most secure, compliant, globally dispersed platform that allows organizations to benefit from revolution with best-in-class AI and data services. And then when I look at, that will provide things like workflow automation, enhanced decision-making, and improved customer experiences for all organizations. Now, I think one of our strengths is our continuous investment in infrastructure. And I know that's obviously been highlighted in the press. We are continuously striving forward, investing in new infrastructure and innovation to ensure that we remain a cornerstone for businesses looking to thrive in the digital age.
And that's a major thing. So one of your key achievements, like we discussed, was the migration of the UK HMRC's on-premises to the environment of Azure. And this migration that was done has contributed as a mission critical to the services of HMRC, which is the UK tax systems, as well. That this was a role in that play in ensuring smooth tax collection and welfare relief distribution during crises like COVID-19, which was a massive crisis worldwide. So I would like to touch this particular case study because I think it's a great case study that, of course, people forget COVID, but we had an entire system that was migrated. First of all, there's the migration, and then there's the case study of passing something that was still paper related, and this was already a couple of years ago, but it really had a massive impact. I would like to touch more on the technical nuances, whatever, of course, you can share, and some of the achievements.
Yeah, sure. It's a great question. So let me quickly touch upon why this particular mission critical workload was chosen. Because, I think when any organization takes its first kind of baby steps into public cloud, and in this case, Azure, you've got two choices. One is you either pick a very discrete, isolated, non-independent workload, and you obviously look if you can migrate and operate that in the cloud. And that'll give you that's baby steps. You can start to create your patterns and governance and all that good stuff that you would generally do when you look to migrate anything to the cloud. Or, like in HMRC's case, you can pick the most gnarly, horrifically interdependent, huge, massively complicated workload and go, well, if we can migrate that thing into Azure, so we can migrate it and then successfully operate it, then of course that anything after that will be relatively easy. And again, you've obviously, having generated the patterns and governance models, again, there'll be a lot of scalable material assets that can be reused there. So in this case, of course, they went for what was called the Enterprise Tax Management Platform to migrate. And please, bear in mind, this platform collects hundreds and hundreds of billions of pounds worth of tax revenue every year. So when I think about the definition of mission critical workloads, this is one of those workloads. I mean, this particular platform called ETMP obviously fuels the coffers of UK government. So it funds the distribution of all the funding for welfare services. So it's in terms of the Her Majesty's Treasury as in funding mechanism, this is right there at the top. But of course, the real drivers here were, and the place we're at now is, that this has created a much more stable, scalable, certainly more secure, far more resilient platform than the original hosting environment provided. Whilst this also benefits financially, clearly it benefits from cloud economics or public cloud economics, and an always current underlying infrastructure, which I think is really important thing that many people kind of forget is when you think about obviously the huge capex outlay that you traditionally would invest in an on-premise environment, from day one, if you think about that depreciation period, 3 to 4 years, of course, from day one, the silicon that's a part of that tin, of course, is actually out of date. So the great thing about the Azure platform, of course, is not only are you getting the financial benefits of only paying for what you utilize, but you're also getting the benefits of each time that Intel or NVIDIA or AMD produce their next set of silicon, back to my point before, in infrastructure, we, of course, adopt that newest technology, implement it onto our platform, so customers have got the very, very latest tech all the time, which in most cases means at times they can scale down their VM sizes because the silicon is much more powerful. So huge benefits there, and obviously huge benefits to UK government and HMRC.
And it's a fantastic success case study that is well highlighted in the media and in the case studies of tech. So continuing on the Azure, so Satya Nadella, Microsoft CEO, frequently uses the metaphor of building Azure as the world's computer to highlight Azure's role in enabling a future where computing is distributed and accessible. I know that for people listening to us, everything we're doing is through computing and through cloud, and of course more increasing to AI. So I would like to see, how do you see this metaphor of the building Azure as the world's computer and the strengths around that facility, which is, I think, partly the success of Microsoft in the last years, to renovate a lot of the things and actually reinvent its business model?
Yeah, there's a couple of things I'd say on that. First one is, in terms of the global reach, and I did mention it before, is that that's the kind of question that a typical customer or partner would ask is like, I want to consume services where I need to have those services. So I need to consume services where I am or where my customers need to consume my services, certainly in terms of an ISV or a digital native. So when I think about this, I think we continue to deploy vast amounts of regions and data center regions in parts of the globe where our customers need to consume those services. So think about huge investments in EMEA at the moment, South America, certainly Asia. We're continuing to, again, geographically disperse regions. I mean, at the moment, we have more regions than the other hyperscalers combined. So that certainly talks to the scale about we want to meet our customers where they are. So that's number one. Second one I'd think about is when you think about certainly open source, and whether it's open source OSs or databases or even LLMs and AI models, we completely, again, whatever a customer wants to utilize in terms of their technology stack choices, our platforms will enable those technology choices. We don't, for example, many years ago, you may have assumed that Azure was a Windows-only platform. And of course, it's not. We have equally as many Linux distributions on there as we do Windows. So again, not only do we want to meet customers where they want to consume services, we have a portfolio or catalog wide enough and agnostic enough so that customers can bring and utilize the technology stacks that they want to utilize. It doesn't have to be Windows native technologies. It can be a plethora, as I said, of open standards or open source or any of those things again. So I think in terms of that, the world's computer, it's kind of those two questions that we mainly focus on: the where and the what, and choice.
So picking on this, and coming back to the UK, so Microsoft has managed to get, of course, some of the top UK organizations as clients. Some examples, of course, we mentioned HMRC, the tax system, but you have as well Royal Mail, Leeds Teaching Hospitals, NHS Trust, and the list goes much bigger, just as an example for people listening to us. So you touched before the importance of digital transformation, and as well you've been highlighting the role of co-creation that play in transforming businesses and keeping this process of looking at big infrastructure capacity, but as well having a collaboration between Microsoft and the customers and your network of partners. Can you highlight on this?
Yeah, I'd say there's kind of two approaches that come to mind. Of course, if I talk about co-innovation first, so for example, under the guise of AI co-innovation, we currently have an initiative where a customer or partner or multiples who obviously already work together can bring their engineering teams and directly work with Microsoft AI experts or SMEs to achieve the goals. So we think about this in the guise of kind of design thinking workshops, brainstorming sessions, or even rapid prototyping environments. So that is, for me, co-innovation, which obviously is like a subset of co-creation. So that springs to mind. If I think about co-creation in general, I would say, we do work quite closely with a number of customers and partners where we have direct engineering engagements, and we invest, of course, in those engagements. If I think about the key tenets of our approach, I would say one is we try to instill creativity. So, of course, you can tap into the creativity of a diverse set of stakeholders from our engineering teams, the customer and partners teams. It obviously enriches and enhances our relationship with those customers and partners. We look to reduce cost and improve efficiencies. So we look to streamline processes as part of these exercises and have focused collaboration. We also think about competitive advantage because, of course, it's great that we've got exclusive feedback from key customers and partners about their industries. At the end of the day, they're the industry SMEs in their particular verticals. We aren't. So it's great to have that feedback and input into our product development, but also it helps them because, of course, there's an increasingly more competitive landscape across all industries. So that competitive advantage is a key thing that we look to draw out in our co-creation activities. And then finally, cultural transformation. I know we've discussed it already a couple of times, but co-creation fosters more openness, higher morale across all the teams, and ultimately more higher productivity as well. So yeah, we take quite a bespoke view of co-creation. But again, there's many values to it.
This is a key element. So, I subscribe, and it's easy talking than done because it's quite a challenging part. So, Microsoft has signed a 5 years contract with the UK government, and it's been one of the things when you look at governments in general is the data guardianship,
Yep.
and how cybersecurity and how this is a crucial issue today. So as the CTO of this division, and of course the most important, how do you approach ensuring, in one end, transparency, security, and ethical data management?
Yeah, it's a great topic to discuss, and we're probably spending an hour just talking about just data in government. To be fair, I would say that the storing, handling, and use of data has always been critical to every organization, and obviously with the era of AI, it's now even more critical. With Microsoft, transparency is key, right? So we expect customers will always have control of their own data. They'll always know where it's located and how it's being used, while we'll uphold our privacy commitments through robust privacy governance policies as well. But as you'll be aware, security is also a top priority for Microsoft. So whether it's robust access policies or encryption or data minimization or retention policies, we ensure that we're also backed up by the most compliant cloud platform. And to your point around data guardians or custodians, whichever one you prefer to call them, should always ensure that they prioritize data quality. So when I think about data quality, I think establishing standards, profiling and identifying anomalies and inconsistencies. They should implement robust data privacy and security standards. So this is not only safeguarding the data, but also to align to regulatory compliance or legislative compliance and FSI, for example. And lastly, they should also implement data governance standards to maintain that data integrity, accessibility and consistency and reliability of the data. I mean, one of the biggest challenges that I've certainly seen in public sector is that of sharing of data and ownership. So if you think when you think about, for example, a common issue, I suppose, across the world in governments is things like fraud prevention. Update once, inform many scenarios. There's certainly a challenge there that I continue to see where government departments who might own their own sets of data and therefore have their own custodians and accountability, ultimately we need to find a way of deriving the value from shared data initiatives. For example, that I said cross-departmental fraud detection, so DWP and HMRC, both, whether it's fraudulent benefit claims or whether it's fraud in the case of tax evasion and avoidance. Certainly data can play such a massive part there, but it still requires an element of the right platform, the right governance models, trust, but very, very clear data governance between the organizations so they can both benefit from that consolidated, aggregated insights from their collective data.
So picking on the data, Microsoft is leading the AI revolution worldwide. So, and of course, this is a big integrated part of Azure and all the ecosystem of Microsoft. So could you elaborate your thoughts about how AI can drive, first of all, growth for business, but at the same time, making sure that there's an inclusivity that brings, I would say, first of all, an assurance. You mentioned trust. ODI, of course, is even more important because in one end is a fantastic, powerful tool and talking about AGI and a lot of different things. But for businesses and business worldwide is about. It's a tool to solve problems. So I would like to talk about that, and as well, how can we actually make that bridge between, especially with your clients and as well people listening to us that are trying to use these tools better. How do you see that the innovation that you guys are bringing to AI and to Azure through AI can actually be used in the best ways?
I mean, I'm very passionate about inclusivity in general, and certainly the positive impact of technology on the neurodiverse communities. I mean, AI has huge potential to drive inclusivity by providing much more personalized experiences and removing them barriers to access. I mean, for me to support neurodiverse individuals better, the tech industry as a whole needs to carry on prioritizing inclusive design, provide training and resources for new diverse employees. I mean, to your point then about UK government, I think the latest stats that I saw were that around 15 to 20% of all civil servants in UK government actually would identify as having some sort of disability. It's a huge amount. And I think one of the most powerful stories I recently heard from a colleague was someone that suffered from a huge amount of anxiety in the workplace. And whenever they received an email or a message on Teams or whatever platform from anyone in a more senior position, including their manager, it created a huge amount of anxiety for them, because even though at times they could conclude what the ask was and what the actions, they were never really sure about what the tone of that communication was. They really struggled, and at times it would almost become a paralyzing moment for them, because they just, again, is that person angry, happy, neutral? And I can't read the tone. So on discovering kind of adoption in this particular organization of Copilot, they utilized Copilot to give them a view of what the actions were, what the tone was, and what the summary of the ask was in every form of comms. That had huge alleviation of anxiety for them. And I mean huge. It completely transformed the way they work and their, obviously, morale in the workplace. But also, they started to use it in responses to colleagues, because they thought, you know what, if I struggle with understanding the nuance of language and tone, then maybe my responses don't always convey what I'm trying to convey. So conversely, they also use Copilot to check the tone of their comms before they sent them out as well. So I think, yeah, AI, certainly Copilot, it's got a huge part to play, and certainly in terms of, for example, in public sector, bringing potentially 20% of the workforce, making them feel more empowered and more included in everyday tasks and life, and certainly more involved in communities as well. So, I mean, it's such a powerful story that I basically tell that to everyone I meet.
Yeah, the numbers are quite astronomical. I know,
Yeah.
for 15 to 20, that's quite impressive.
Yeah. Well, I would just add as well, my son has ASD and ADHD, so very neurodiverse. And he, I think about, obviously, he's currently doing his GCSEs, and I think about him moving into the workplace a lot, and I think about, like, how would he adapt? But so it's great to see the fact that actually I feel as though the workplace is coming closer to him. So I do have some hope for ultimately his career, certainly in the corporate environments in the future.
It's very inspiring. And I know that as well, Satya, the CTO, the CEO of Microsoft, has been highlighting a lot of his personal experience with his children. I know as well that you had a tragic as well element in your personal life.
Yeah.
And I think this humanity part is something that I know that Microsoft has been quite successful bringing to technology. And I think this is more important, because if you get this, you can get better business and as well more meaningful. And kudos to that. I know that it's not easy, just looking at the numbers. So
Yeah.
One of my next questions, and I want to be conscious of your time. So is many companies face a dilemma, and this touches a bit what you said as well. So they face a dilemma between quick fixes like lift and shift solutions and long-term digital transformation. In this case, right now, more and more AI transformation strategies. What advice would you give to these organizations, and as well your experience dealing with major global organizations, in this case, UK, the major institutions you can have, there's nothing bigger, but as well, we look at the approach to balance these quick fixes, a lift and shift, and long-term digital transformation. or AI transformation strategies?
Yeah, I think the balancing that quick fixes and longer term digital transformation, first of all, requires a clear understanding of an organization's ambitions and strategic priorities. I mean, my advice generally is always to adopt a hybrid approach. It's you've got to have almost like two parallel streams in that. One is, can you address some immediate needs while laying the foundations for long-term success? So, can you identify quick wins that actually what they do, speaking to the culture again, is they can provide immediate value, but you can also use them as stepping stones towards a more comprehensive transformation strategy. So it's still crucial to take everyone on that journey and evangelize these quick wins. The business and people value is so critical, and therefore everyone understands the desired outcomes. And lastly, if you think about it, it's never a completely smooth ride. It's going to be a bumpy ride, any form of long-term transformation. So if you've got the people's buy-in, of course, they're going to ride that at certain and uncertain times, that wave in unison as you kind of go through that transformation. So hybrid, and then look at those quick wins and establish the long-term strategy to obviously take on what you've achieved in the quick wins, but ultimately to still aligning to what your corporate ambitions are.
It's very important. It's a balance that is super difficult.
Yeah.
So given your experience across all the innovation, different technology sectors, and as well different companies and different verticals, what do you think is the next technological shift or innovation that business should start preparing for? Of course, you can look at AI, but as well, how do you see? I know Microsoft is bringing as well quantum computing, and this, of course, excites tech people like me and you. That probably most of the business will be, what is this? So I would like to hear your opinion on this, and as well bringing this down to earth, like what you just said.
Yeah, it's funny. It's such an exciting time to be alive in terms of technology. It's just absolutely amazing. And just on a daily basis, it seems to be almost a new announcement from us or from someone else. It's just amazing. It's funny because firstly, I feel that most organizations have a long way to go to really understand the true value of AI and certainly Gen AI. Like for some, AI simply means Copilot or some other human interface to an AI, a back-end AI entity or a more informed chatbot. That's what AI means to some organizations, where others, of course, are really appreciating the impact that AI brings, like enhancing productivity, streamlining operations, driving business model innovation. And especially when you factor in the evolution of multimodal integrated AI as well, which again, for some organizations, that is sci-fi. But obviously, different organizations work at different paces. I think the rich tapestry of functionality and autonomy that agentic AI also brings to bear is significantly transformative. When I think about B2C and B2B interactions, for example, so I think that over time we'll see that interaction speed, the consistency and the quality of the interactions improve through the automation between businesses and consumers, and of course between consumers themselves as well. So agentic AI, I think a lot of organizations still don't really understand what the business value there is. But I think ultimately, again, I would suggest that the adoption speed of many AI-based services is still based upon regulations that still need to be created. Consumer trust is a big one. And I think more importantly, the normalization of societal expectations of what AI is and what it isn't. Like, for example, I'll give you Microsoft Research published a paper a few weeks ago now where essentially one of the conclusions was Copilot's brilliant and these AI platforms are great, but they're actually making humans dumber. And actually what it's talking about there is critical thinking, of course, because, the more you rely on output of an AI model, of course, the more you're almost relinquishing your own thought processes and questioning the response. So for me, what's really important is that any of these AI-based models, as we always say, are there to augment our own critical thinking. They're there to supplement, or they're an ancillary layer for us and our thinking. They're there to speed up some of the less human tasks so that we can focus on the more critical thinking things and be far more aware of data insights and actually being more challenging of things rather than just relinquishing that decision making over to AI. And then to your point around quantum, I mean, quantum has been around now for over 40 years. When you think back to the theoretical quantum computing science and then right the way through, it's obviously got clear advantages in certain specific use case scenarios. And obviously we hear a lot about the disruption it's going to bring to cryptography and data processing in general. Although I don't feel many organizations are planning the interception of quantum quite yet. Outside of certain specialized industries, there's certainly some trepidation around its potential disruptiveness to established practices and industries as well. So yeah, I think, AI in general, agentic and quantum, super exciting. But the adoption of each of those is so different depending on what industry you're in. And again, whether you're talking about, brownfield sites, greenfield, born in the cloud organization, digital natives, of course, are very quick to adopt a lot of this technology. But of course, the more established organizations, have just got a lot more trepidation.
Yeah, I think you touch, I love the way you put it, because it's about how we can use this not to become dumber, but become more empowered. And I think it's a very nuanced. It's very difficult because very easily you can think that you are doing this and you're not using all the fantastic things that come out of this. So for my last question, I want to touch precisely on this, and I know I want to be respectful, although there's a lot of questions here just on the quantum, but I'll probably do a take one or take two. So Microsoft has been doing a fantastic work, and I'm personally very excited about that, about Microsoft education for business leaders and for other things. And I know that it's a big thing that you are as well encouraging UK business leaders. So how do you think, first, I just want to highlight for people listening to us that there's the Microsoft Education AI Toolkit, and there's a lot of courses that we offer both for business and general. So for people listening to us, and especially in the UK, if there was one key action that you would encourage UK business leaders to take right now, what would be? And of course, I highlight education, but I want to hear from you. This is a level that I want to bring to this interview.
Yeah, I mean, I would say rather than a single action, I'd almost like to give two focus areas. For me, the most crucial areas are people and data. I mean, I'd encourage all UK business leaders to prioritize digital transformation, of course, but to embrace a culture of continuous innovation. I mean, this involves continue to invest in new technologies to release the power of people and data, fostering a mindset of continuous improvement and building strong partnerships with technology partners like ourselves. I mean, as we look forward, for me, every organization needs to ensure they focus on people, so skilling, investment, empowerment, in tandem with data. So having a really robust data strategy is so important, not just in terms of AI, but just when you think about the future, because it's so crucial that every organization starts to become more intentionally data-driven in terms of how they think about their business model innovation and how they compete in the future. And on that way, they'll be able to embrace the real power of AI, as I mentioned before.
Well, fantastic. And I think this is the most important, people managing the data in the right way. And I love what you said as well about understanding how we can use this to empower in a very strong way. Alex, I want to thank you for this fantastic and very personal and deep dive into all the things and all the work you're doing. I wish you a continuous fantastic success, and especially it's not easy with all the responsibilities you have, but I think you're showing as well maturity and as well a calmness that is important. Thank you for being here.